All right, it's good to have you on Good Morning Anambra Show Studios this Monday morning, the 10th day of June 2024. We're so delighted to be here, and we have in the studio a public affairs guest to help in the paper's analysis. This is audience participatory. We encourage you to be part and parcel of it. You can drop your comment on our Facebook page at ABS Radio Television. And of course, you can let us know your thoughts on any issue raised here. We have some of our national dailies and of course, stories trending on ABS website. You're welcome to the studio, Samuel.
Thank you very much for having me, Noye.
You look so good.
Thank you very much. And then, good morning, Anambra. As usual, we wish us a happy and productive new week.
All right, you're welcome. Let's begin. We're taking a look at some of the stories trending on ABS website. Mrs. Soludo takes healthy living campaign to Afrigwe Market, Umudioka. Soludo restates commitment towards sports development. Umuada Mobia honors Anambra Assembly Deputy Speaker. Okay, these are the three stories we are highlighting from ABS website this morning.
First of all, I think the government is doing what is expected of them. An average functional government with facts, statistics, and what we'll call data concerning the issues going on in the society. And I want to understand currently that the First Lady, Mrs. Soludo, has her own keen interest in health and healthy living, which she uses her initiative, Healthy Living with Noye Soludo, to push. Going around to market, it's a wonderful one. The message of health cannot be overemphasized, because while we are talking about our physical health, there's an area I feel strongly that both the media, CSOs, government, and even the citizens have not very well paid attention to, and that is the area of mental health. It's very, very important and key at this point in time when a lot of things are going haywire, where some families are fighting for minimum wage. Government, the governors are even saying they can't pay the minimum wage. But this is still a country where a certain governor paid in advance the school fees of his son or of his children. And if you touch him, he will tell you there is no money. And he was even paying civil servants half of their pay. He did not even embrace the minimum wage then. So while we are talking about healthy living, it's also important we begin to dive deeply into mental health. And I want to link this call for more attention to mental health as well as our other areas of life to the call for the sports development the governor is talking about. There is this initiative that we have at schools. You work with the school authority, identify a particular primary health care center. Different schools would play football as a competition, but before they play that football, you talk to them about their well-being. You talk to them about issues concerning gender-based violence. You talk to them about mental health. You talk to them about HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, how to prevent them, malaria.
Using one stone
exactly.
To kill 7
So talking about, I think the government can buy into this. So it will not just be come, play football, clap your hands, and then go. It's very, very important we pay attention to building our. Right. Then finally, sorry, the Umuada people that are Umuada in Amobia. I'm really interested to know what they discussed with the Deputy Speaker. It's important that they also tell them that this time around that we're talking about local government autonomy. I mean, we are relying on the House to also add their voices for there to be a complete and whole local government autonomy in every state of the nation, so that the citizens can feel the impact of government.
All right, let's move on to the first paper for review this morning, the Daily Times newspaper. No cause for alarm over Nigeria's debt profile. That's coming from experts. Say nothing wrong with obtaining loans if used judiciously for developmental projects. No cause for alarm. That's the experts have said. All right, Tinubu actually benefited from Atiku's goodwill. That's coming from Aid. And we see returned artifact will boost those tourism potentials, Obaseki speaking. Cost of governance, Aisha Yusufu wants Senate script. Kano Anti-Graft Commission probes alleged empowerment scheme fraud. And Tinubu approves mandate for special presidential envoy on climate action. These are some of the stories trending on the Daily Times. So Lolo.
Well, ordinarily there should be no cause for alarm on a debt profile of a nation that is headed towards prosperity and infrastructural development. But we have always argued that, unfortunately, there is this trust deficit between our leaders and the citizens. So we can't say there is no cause for alarm, because over the years, currently, SERAP is still battling, or they have threatened to sue the Tinubu's administration for their refusal to release the debt information of the past government. So over the years, despite the Freedom of Information Act, despite democracy and governance being open.
You know, in other words, you're saying there are so many things that are shrouded in secrecy. Because there was one news I listened to yesterday. I don't know whether many people have listened to that news, that 200 million naira were shared to some youths in Nigeria, you know, for poverty alleviation or whatever. So I was like, the broadcast nature in me propped up. You know, I was like, who are these youths? Where did they come from? You know, who covered the event? Can they tell us? Can the youths come out boldly to tell us that they are the ones that received this amount of money? Because down here, we didn't hear anything like that.
No, so surprisingly, it will surprise you. So I think it will surprise you that this actually might have happened. So there are different sides to this conversation, especially when it has to do with governance system in Nigeria. We have leaders who are not deliberate towards working for the development of the citizens. If that they were, I bet you their development plan would have a lot of process that you can relate with. But unfortunately, what many of the leaders do is, when they roll out a program, you see some persons who hijack it. And as a matter of fact, there are youths. We're not even talking about the aged ones who are now at their 50s, still claiming youth. Just as they are political farmers, when government says they want to run an agricultural intervention, those political farmers organize themselves, pay courtesy visits, and hijack the farm input, and sometimes go to the market and sell them, whereas the main farmers in the villages don't have access to them. So there are also youths who are good at that. Whenever the government says they want to run a program, you see them, they mobilize themselves, they know the sweet tongues that they can use to access those money, and the main people who should work for the development of the economy will not have access to it, and they will continue to suffer. That is one. Then another area is, other times you see some of these government interventions will be hijacked by party politics. You begin to hear, if you're not of this party, your name will not even come out of it. So these things happen, and it's unfortunate that Nigeria cannot grow if we continue to dwell in this kind of system. We want a system that is open, transparent, where anybody can have access to information, especially as Nigeria signed onto OGP, Open Government Partnership. And the concept of open government OGP is co-creation, access to information, everything transparency.
Well, at least when we get to that level, we know that Nigeria is properly healed.
But we need to see, at least that is why most times when people say the citizens are called the citizens different kinds of name, I tend to quarrel about it. We need to see leadership. We need to see leaders who are tending towards this direction so that the people would follow. But you can't engage, neither can you follow up with half-baked information. And they intentionally do this.
All right, now can we really agree with Aisha Yesufu here, calling for scraping of the Senate for cost of governance?
So the big question now is, in the first place, why did we have the Senate and the House of Representatives? If we can critically look at that, and we now ask ourselves at this point in time, to what essence, to what benefit have this Senate served us? I mean, they take more, they don't do public hearing, and their allocation keeps increasing per budget fiscal year. And when we say the people who are the productive engine of the economy, that is the civil servants, compare the amount the civil servants earn, compare the amount these senators earn.
You're going too far. Talk of citizens having access to them, because these are people we send to represent us, to be our mouthpiece there. And how many times have they really done
town hall? That's what I'm saying. Even many of the laws,
to know the minds of the people, citizens, to know what they feel about what they are doing up there.
Exactly. Even in advanced world, sometimes you hear reports saying that this is a policy direction of the government, but before they even go ahead with it, they have done necessary consultations to get the feedback and input of the citizens, and that would then inform what they are doing. But unfortunately,
and until we start doing that in this nation,
unfortunately, when you call the House of Assembly members, both at the state or at the federal level, now they run away from engagement for many reasons. Sometimes they tell you that the citizens, when they engage them, will begin to beg them for money that begin to carry a lot of load on them. But it's enough for you to make you understand that there is a problem already, and sit down, begin the conversation with how can we solve this. But the unfortunate thing is, they go down there, they speak a lot of grammar, saying that they are representing the people, but they have not for once known these people I'm representing. What I'm even saying, is it representing really their interests?
What they want. All right, let's run. The Punch newspaper is next in our lineup. Let's see stories making their headlines in front of the Punch. The banner headline there reads, Field Foods lead as imports hit 12 trillion naira. Manufacturers import 1.5 trillion naira raw materials. Food import gobs 921 billion naira. Nigeria gets 19 trillion naira forex from crude oil, solid mineral exports. Others. EU raises Schengen visa fee to 90 euros. Vandalism. FG tightens security on Third Mainland Bridge. Democracy Day. Federal government to hold parade. Youth summit dinner. And police students, 25 others abducted on Abuja-Nasarawa highway. A local refinery may crash petrol price to 300 naira per litre. Modular refineries. State work on total electricity subsidy removal. New tariff. Now marketers register with Dangote refinery ahead of loading. Minimum wage talks end today. Labor awaits Tinubu's nod. Okay, I think a lot of people might be interested in this to know the outcome of their meeting today. Until then, go on. Hello.
So on the case of minimum wage, at first we know the reality, and unfortunately it depends on the angle you are looking at it, and that is why I've always shared my concern that in Nigeria we need to begin as a people to have our own values. If we have our values, of course, everybody would not have the same value. And then our concept. Initially, I've argued that instead of labor to be crying or clamoring for minimum wage or whatnot, can't we begin to talk about standard of living? Can't we begin to engage the government to improve housing deficit, to make housing deficit, to address the issue of housing deficit, to address the issue of transportation, and a lot of other issues, so that if those things are addressed, the amount you take home, you can know how to plan with it, because some of other things have been addressed. But currently, even if the money becomes 150, you still have to build your houses yourself, you still have to pay transportation costs yourself, and a woman has threatened that once the minimum wage is affected, that a crate of egg will be increased to 10,000 naira. Is a threat. But let's now imagine that a crate of egg becomes 10,000 naira as they threatened. It is going to be into that say 150 or 400 that you are calling about. So what will be your take-home package? That has been my argument. But because of the reality we are, Labour is crying, is shouting for the minimum wage.
Don't you think that lack of transparency in most of the things done in the country is also affecting whatever policy that is coming up in this nation?
So two things. I think somehow we have addressed this issue when we're talking about the need to even support the scrapping of the Senate. When we're talking about the issue of trust and what are they doing for us, it is important because these people don't represent us. They only represent their political interests. They only represent what they think the people want. So these are issues. If we can settle down and think deeper as a people, I tell you, we would go another route. And you will see the people coming in to support the government. In Abia State, there is this walkway that got spoiled. You see an indigene in Abia State calling a private firm to come and repair it, that this is his own contribution to ensure that the road the governor is working does not get damaged. Why? Because people have now seen that this one is really working and they want to support that cause. So if our government and our leaders continue to do things that the people are not connected to, unfortunately it will not fly. And it is now being seen in the issue, the conversation we are having about minimum wage. And governors saying they cannot pay. And let me use the opportunity to say I align completely with Nigerian Labour Congress that have called on any government or any governor that says they can't pay the minimum wage, they should resign. Because it means they are not effective. Just to resign for another person to come on board and work around it.
Are you sure that would be called Nigeria? Because have you ever seen someone resign from political approach?
We agree. So if you don't want to resign, that means the heat is too hot for the kitchen is hot for you, and you are willing to solve the situation. If you can't solve it, then you leave. We are talking about fuel and a lot of food import. We are talking about food insecurity. Yet an expert is saying we should not worry about the loan and borrowings that we are having. So the question is, the money the government has been borrowing, what exactly are they doing with it? If you do a comparative analysis of the projects going on in Nigeria with projects going on in other climes, you find out that, for example, a kilometer of road would be 5 times higher than a kilometer of road in other countries.
All right, let's run. Our time is fast running. Let's see stories from the Vanguard newspaper. Let's see stories making their headlines in front of the Vanguard. Experts see danger around minimum wage battle. Basic education, why UBE Act must be reviewed. Senate, UBEC boss, others. Airfares prices skyrocket, distort travel plans. How Jonathan, wife, others forced Wike on Rivers. And other stories in front of that paper reads Obi mocks INEC, South Africa elections didn't experience glitches. Gunmen abduct 30 passengers in Nasarawa. We'll quickly take a look at the second paper, the Daily Independent, before we analyze. The Daily Independent newspaper, despite CBN assurances, 3 banks show signs of distress. That's coming from analysts. We see Seraphs use the federal government over failure to account for loans by ex-presidents. APC wins all seats in Yobe Council poll. Refrain from issues you know nothing about. Atiku tells Shetima. Naira devaluation impacting positively on export, coming from the customs. And other stories, Northern Elders ask federal government to set up national pastoralist commission. Okay, Tinubu okay's mandate for Special Envoy on Climate Action. Troops eliminate 11 terrorists in Abia, Zamfara. Others. Okay, let's take a look at some of these stories. Please, quickly.
I will just summarize all this with, we cannot continue to talk about investors coming into the country where when you go or when you come to our dailies, the conversation making the round is of threat. This before an expert makes their judgment, they look at a lot of indices. You look at security, you look at the inflation, you look at stability of the economy, you look at the government accountability measures and all whatnot. But unfortunately, whenever we come online, whenever our dailies make their publications, they are all on the negatives. And this also accounts to why we are struggling to grow our efforts. We want to have a country where our leaders would not only have confidence and work for the people, but a country where the people would also key into the programs of the government and attract foreign investors. Even if these foreign investors we're talking about are not, even if our foreigners, people are not Nigerians, but we have Nigerians who are outside the country, who are doing well, who should also come and invest. But under this climate, how can they invest? And this is 21st century, for crying out loud. And we have gone deep into the 21st century. A lot of other countries have gone far into innovations, into technology, trying to address climate change related issues. But in our own dear Nigeria, even NIMET had warned us that this year flooding would come out heavy. But no conversation is going on around that. Governors are not even trying to make a shift arrangement for people in the riverine areas. They're not doing anything to control it before it happens. But once it happens, you begin to see interventions coming from left, right, and center, flooding intervention victims. We want to do this. But I think we should become proactive rather than reactive.
I don't know. I wonder the kind of danger that experts are seeing around the minimum wage battle. There's something I saw here said by Father Mbaka. He said governors, senators, and reps should also earn 62,000 naira minimum wage. That's coming from Father Mbaka. Then I watched a video of this Reverend Father from Abuja that normally does a program on AIT. In fact, as the man was speaking, if you watch that video, you will cry for this country. And so many people are coming up saying things, especially around about the poor, the poorest of the poor in our midst. And of course, a lot of things. The TUC also, they wrote a Babio for labeling a state as a strike as act of economic sabotage. And of course, I know you must have equally seen where there's this write-up about that economic sabotage. They are riding in SUVs. They are in, that's how they described it. Yes, okay. So I don't know what actually is the danger that could be surrounding the debate of this minimum wage issue.
So ordinarily, in situations like this, I think what we should naturally be talking about is appealing to the hearts and conscience of our leaders to look at the situation once again and find out that indeed Nigerians are suffering. But the big question is, if you look at these people's hearts and consciences, do they still have any? That is a big question that situations unfolding would answer. Because ordinarily, this is still a country where 21 billion was just spent for the construction of the house of the vice president, which I'm not saying is wrong. But priorities, if you are setting a priority right, it is just like a father at home whose son is out of school because he claims he does not have money to pay for school fees of 20,000 or 50,000. But he is using that money that he is building a house. And the son in the house who can reason sees that his father is building a house, but he is not going to school. How do you think that house would be? How would the mother react? How would the son even see the father? These are the images. So these are unspoken words that our leaders are not saying, but the people are saying. So it becomes striking and confusing when they begin to preach about patriotism, when they begin to preach about you need to tighten your belt, we don't have money. But the kind of life they are living, the kind of life they are living. So I would end with this. It's unfortunate that our leaders only get interested and involved in what affects them. But once it does not affect them or their cronies, they play a deaf ear to it. And they seem not to relate with the feelings of the citizens.
All right, quickly, let's look at other papers for time. This day newspaper is next. The stories making their headlines this day says senior lawyers differ on uniform national minimum wage, say Nigeria running a federation, insists individual states should negotiate separately. NLC-TUC tackle governors, accuse state chief executives of acting in bad faith. Now states should sort issues out with labor unions, says Makinde. Tinubu are still retooling financial system to bring relief to Nigerians. Babio, by completing 650,000 BPD refinery, Dangote has shamed Nigerian government. Okay, quickly we see the other paper, the Nation newspaper. Minimum wage, Labour awaits Tinubu's decision on 62,000 naira. Blast governors for rejecting 60,000. Labels their action wicked. Pay rise may not bode well for economy. Experts speaking. FG retailing. Okay, we've seen that. Now parents demand justice for mysterious death of daughter in boyfriend's house. Okay, the Guardian newspaper. Economy in throes of credit squeeze. Sheds 7.1 trillion naira in 3 months. Also in front of the Guardian, we see Lagos AG ask court to discontinue 1.35 billion EFCC case. ILO conference may stall minimum wage talks as leaders jet out of country. Okay, other stories. Northern Elders Fort lawmakers offer solution to open grazing. And of course, custom generates 1.09 billion naira in 90 days from vehicle registration. Quickly, the Daily Trust. Governors spend billions on cars for lawmakers. Blueprint says, refuse to join us, get killed. Terrorist gang threatens Niger youth. All right, quickly. Our time is fast spent before we go.
So, in all of this, I'll still continue to say that we really need a working system. Okay. And to have a working system, the leaders must listen to the people. And we, the citizens, should also watch our approach and manner that will present issues, abusing our leaders. However, it is part of it. Because if you have brought out yourself, you want to lead, it means you are going to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you're also you should accept criticisms. The question now is, this also calls for national conscientization. How do you criticize? Some people we are only acting the way we think we can. But if the likes of NOA, we now begin to chart a national discourse on when you want to criticize, this is how you would do it, or this is how not to do it. But the big question is, you can't beat a child and tell the child how to cry.
All right. I think we can go on and on, but here is where we are, ending for today. That's much time could allow us to take on the press review. Would like to thank you so much, Ololo, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Noye.
All right, that's it on the press review. We have more coming on Good Morning Anambra Show. Do stay.